Shouldn't you be in the kitchen or something? That's what they said when Leona Carter, a 19-year-old black girl from a low-income neighborhood in Atlanta, walked into the MIT robotics lab, wearing thrifted jeans and a homemade prototype in her backpack. They didn't know who she was. They didn't care what she had built. But what they didn't realize was this wasn't just another girl with big dreams. This was the girl whose invention would leave an entire team of engineers speechless, turn the competition upside down, and force everyone who mocked her to learn her name. MIT's Robotics Innovation Lab was buzzing. Wires tangled like spider webs, 3D printers hummed, and in the far corner, a group of elite undergrads, mostly white, mostly male, were gathered around a half-built bipedal prototype named Valkyrie X. It was the day of the Open Tech Challenge, where students from other schools could compete for a chance to pitch original ideas. Leona stood at the entrance, clutching a cracked tablet in one hand and a canvas backpack in the other. Inside was the prototype she'd built over the last 2 years using parts salvaged from broken toasters, RC cars, and donated Arduinos. She stepped into the room. Silence. Heads turn, then smirks. One of the guys near the whiteboard leaned back, arms crossed. He looked her up and down. "You lost?" he asked. "No," Leona said, voice steady. "I'm here for the challenge." Another guy, blonde, cocky grin. "Challenge. This isn't a cooking class. You sure you're in the right room?" A few of the others laughed. Leona didn't. She walked past them, toward the sign-in sheet. Someone behind her muttered, just loud enough. She should go back to the kitchen. It wasn't the first time she'd heard it. She'd heard it at community college, at the Makers Fair last year, even at her part-time job when she sketched her circuit diagrams on the back of receipts. But this time, something snapped, not out loud, inside. Fine, she thought. They want a kitchen. I'll cook up something they can't digest. The competition began. One by one, the teams presented exoskeletons, AI-driven limbs, facial recognition drone, slick slideshows, team-branded hoodies, venture-ready buzzwords. Then, Leona's name was called. She stepped forward, alone. No team, no sponsor, just her and a beat-up suitcase she placed on the table. The judges exchanged glances. "Miss Carter, you have 5 minutes." She nodded, unzipped the case, and pulled out a small, strange-looking device, a 6-legged robot with mismatched panels, a camera eye, and a tiny processor duct-taped to its core. Someone in the audience whispered, "Is that thing made from scrap?" Leona cleared her throat. "This is Lux 1, she said. "It's a modular terrain bot designed for post-disaster search and rescue in tight, unstable environments, built with upcycled components. It uses a unique crawl rotation algorithm to maneuver through rubble and collapsed buildings." A judge interrupted. "What kind of control system?" She clicked her tablet. Multi-input neural net. Self-training through simulated debris environments I coded myself. The robot activated. On screen, it began navigating a digital model of a collapsed structure, identifying gaps, rerouting, adjusting leg pressure in real time. And then, Leona pulled out the physical version. "Watch this," she said. She released it on a terrain board full of obstacles, bricks, sand, plastic barriers. Lux 1 crawled, paused, twisted, lifted itself over a jagged edge, found a simulated trapped object, beeped. The room went dead silent. Even the cocky guy from earlier leaned forward. A second judge looked stunned. "How did you code the adaptive pressure?" "I reverse-engineered the behavior of ant legs," Leona replied. "Then tested it in VR using a sandbox I built from scratch." Someone in the back whispered, "Yo, she built this from junk." When the 5 minutes ended, no one laughed. The lead judge cleared his throat. "Where did you say you studied?" Leona smiled. "I didn't." Yet, after her presentation, the room was still. No applause, no praise, just the weight of disbelief. Leona zipped her case shut and quietly walked off stage. Shoulders squared. She didn't need validation, not yet. She just needed a chance. But as she passed the other students, she felt it. The silence wasn't respect. It was resentment. especially from one guy, Troy Brennan, captain of the MIT robotics team, third-generation engineer. Entitled, brilliant, dangerous. He leaned against the table, smirking. That was cute, he said. Really clever for something built in your garage. She nodded. Thanks. I built it under my bed, actually. That shut him up for a second. But his eyes said it all. You don't belong here. You embarrassed me. I won't let that slide. The next morning, Leona returned early to the robotics lab. Her presentation had earned her a slot in the final round, and she needed to make sure Lux One was ready. She unpacked the case and froze. Wires were ripped. The camera was dislodged. The neural net card gone. Her stomach dropped. No note, no explanation. Just silence and sabotage. She knelt by the table, hands trembling. Her entire project was torn apart like a broken toy, but she didn't scream. She didn't run to a supervisor. She sat down and started fixing. Troy walked in 15 minutes later, coffee in hand. He barely glanced her way. You okay? He said with fake concern. Looks like something got mangled. Leona didn't look up. I'll be fine. He sipped. Too bad if you can't compete, though. Would have been nice to see what Lux could have done against real robotics. Still, she didn't flinch, but her fingers moved faster. She rewired the optic cable with a soldering pen she brought from home, recalibrated the gyroscopic sensors manually, even rewrote a portion of the code from memory without a backup. 6 hours, no food, no bathroom break, just fire. By late afternoon, she had rebuilt 80% of the bot. But the neural net card, the heart of the AI, was still missing, until one of the custodial staff, Mr. Jules, quietly approached. Miss Carter, he said, holding something in his hand, a chip, slightly bent, but intact. I found this in the trash by the Team Valkyrie table. Figured it wasn't theirs. She stared, then smiled, and whispered, "Thank you." She didn't sleep that night. She stayed in the lab, alone, eyes red, hands blistered. By sunrise, Lux One blinked awake again. Not just restored, upgraded. She'd added a fallback protocol. If tampered with, the system would rebuild a temporary sub-AI using onboard data and recover autonomy. It was like giving her robot a second brain, a failsafe against sabotage. Final day. Top 3 contestants. Live testing in front of MIT's academic panel. Leona rolled in quietly. No eye contact, no drama. Troy saw her, and for the first time, he looked a little nervous. His team went first. Their robot performed flawlessly until it hit the incline ramp. Too heavy. It stalled. Next team. Decent, clean, safe. Then came Leona. She placed Lux on the course. A mixed terrain obstacle. Gravel, slopes, uneven bricks, vertical climb. She took a breath, tapped the tablet. The robot sprang to life. It adapted, adjusted, crawled, pivoted. It solved the terrain like it had seen it before because in her neural simulations, it had. The audience leaned forward. Lux paused midway, recalibrated, and launched a micro-climb maneuver that none of the other bots had even attempted. The judges stared. One whispered, "Did she write that behavior herself?" Another said, "That's not just repair, that's intelligent recovery." When it finished the course with the best time of the day, the room erupted. Some clapped, some just stared. But Troy, he walked out before they even announced the winner. Leona didn't chase him. She turned to the judges and bowed slightly. "I'm not here to prove I belong," she said. "I'm here to build what they said wasn't possible." The day after the Open Tech Challenge finals, Leona Carter's name was everywhere. Her inbox was flooded. Journalists wanted quote. Small investor groups emailed, asking about licensing Lux One's terrain algorithm. Even MIT's official Twitter account posted, "Innovation isn't about where you come from, it's about what you build." Congratulations to Leona Carter, winner of this year's Tech Challenge. Future off robotics. But the biggest surprise came in person. In the main quad, under a canopy of red leaves, Dr. Harold Lynn, head of MIT's Advanced Robotics Division, approached her. He was surrounded by 2 faculty members and a few students with clipboards. "Miss Carter," he said, adjusting his glasses. "I was one of the judges yesterday, and I must say, that maneuver protocol in Lux 1, revolutionary." Leona blinked. "Thank you." "Sir," he smiled, "have you considered staying? We have a visiting innovators program, but for students like you, exceptions can be made." Her breath caught. MIT, the school she once admired from a cracked laptop screen in a two-bedroom apartment, now offering her a chance. "A place? A voice." She nodded slowly. "I'd be honored." But not everyone was clapping. Across the courtyard, Troy Brennan stood under the archway, watching it all, and something inside him cracked. He wasn't just embarrassed anymore. He was furious. That evening, a post appeared on a student robotics forum under a pseudonym. "Looks like someone's invention just happened to mirror code our team's been working on for months. Curious how her bot pulled off behavior it shouldn't have known how to do." The comment gained traction fast. Screenshots from the Valkyrie X test environment were posted side by side with clips of Lux 1's performance. The implication that Leona had stolen part of their algorithm within 24 hours. Whispers turned to doubt. Then came the email from MIT's ethics board. "Miss Carter, due to recent allegations regarding code similarity between LX 1 and Valkyrie X, we're opening a formal review. We ask that you provide full documentation of your development process." Leona read it once, then again, hands cold, mind racing. She knew what this was. Troy hadn't just lost a competition. He wanted to erase her from the space altogether. That night, Leona sat in the dorm room MIT had temporarily assigned her for the finalist program. She opened her laptop, clicked through every file, every log, every version of Lux's codebase, and then she smiled. Because what Troy didn't know, she had kept everything. Every time-stamped commit, every bug fix, every journal note, every napkin sketch scanned from her kitchen table. Her data trail was so clean it could have been used in a courtroom. At the review hearing, held in a gray conference room on the 3rd floor of MIT's robotics building, Troy sat across from her, flanked by his team. She sat alone. No lawyers, no advisors, just her work. The board asked questions. "When did you begin development? Where did you source your code base? Do you have evidence this was independently developed?" Leona answered clearly, then opened a folder titled The Build Timeline. Inside, video logs of her hand-wiring each leg actuator, a spreadsheet mapping AI response versus terrain variance, GitHub commit history, dating back 18 months long before Troy's team ever published theirs. Then she pulled out the final piece, a side-by-side comparison of her algorithm and Valkyrie X's, hers, decentralized logic clustering with reactive fallback loops, theirs, centralized modular AI, completely different, completely hers. Silence. Then, one board member leaned forward and asked Troy, "Did you verify your claims before submitting them?" Troy squirmed. "I saw similarities." You thought wrong," the professor said coldly. The verdict: no plagiarism, no misconduct, and an official warning issued to Troy for filing a baseless, reputation-damaging accusation. Outside the room, Leona took a deep breath. She'd done it. Not just defended her name. She'd dismantled every excuse they had left. Later that evening, Dr. Lin stopped by her lab bench. He placed a fresh MIT Innovators badge in her hand. "We don't just want you here," he said. "We need you here." Leona officially joined MIT's Robotics Innovation Program as a visiting fellow. The announcement went out across campus. Photos of her robot, Lux 1, were shared in newsletters. Faculty buzzed with excitement. But inside the lab, things were colder. Dr. Lin assigned her to the Titan project, MIT's most ambitious AI mechanical integration challenge to date. The goal: build a fully autonomous humanoid unit capable of lifting its own body weight, processing terrain data, and performing rescue functions without a tether or remote input. 6 students had been hand-picked, all male, all from legacy families, elite prep schools. or international Olympiad pedigrees. Leona was the only outsider, the only woman, the only black student. At their first team meeting, no one looked her in the eye. "Let's just keep moving," one guy muttered when she spoke. Another, named Grant, said, "We already have a direction. Don't fix what's not broken." One even whispered, "She's just here for PR." She heard it, every word, and it cut deep. But she didn't flinch. She studied the schematics, quietly identified 4 points of mechanical inefficiency, then said nothing. She wasn't there to prove anything, not verbally, at least. 3 weeks passed. The team worked late into the night on a prototype nicknamed Titan Alpha, a massive, impressive-looking bot that could barely walk without toppling over. It kept overheating. Its sensors misread even basic slope adjustments. Its logic core failed under time-delayed command input. But the boys refused to change course. "It just needs tweaking," they kept saying. One evening, Leona quietly submitted her own side proposal. Project Nova. Not a humanoid, not bipedal, but spider-legged, low center balance. Sleeker, smarter, faster. A search and rescue bot that didn't try to imitate humans, but outperformed them. Dr. Lin pulled her aside. "You're serious about this design?" She nodded. "I can build the whole thing myself. Just give me access to Lab C." He hesitated. "You'll be alone." She smiled. "That's how I started." Over the next month, while Titan Alpha clanked and stalled in public demos, Leona worked in silence. Alone, she ate in the lab, slept on a cot. She coded, printed, built, rebuilt. Nova was her. All her pain, all her grace, all her refusal to disappear. 6 legs, optical thermal sensors, a custom AI she named Echo, built on her Lux 1 framework, but more intuitive, more adaptive. She didn't talk to the other team. She didn't ask for space on their project board. She let the wires speak. Then came demo day. Titan Alpha booted up first. Big, loud, intimidating. It took 3 shaky steps, stalled, then collapsed on a slope. Applause was light, nervous. Dr. Lin cleared his throat. And now, one more demonstration. From someone not listed on the schedule, but who's earned this moment. He nodded toward the shadows. Leona stepped out, holding a small black case. She placed it gently on the floor, tapped her tablet. Nova activated. It unfolded itself. Each leg clicked into place. Its eyes blinked. It moved. Fast, precise, silent. It scaled the entire terrain course in 17 seconds. Detected a thermal victim. Launched a retractable arm. Pulled the object to safety. The room erupted. One of the Titan team members mumbled, "How did she build that so fast?" Dr. Lin answered without looking away from Nova. "She didn't build it fast. She built it right." The next morning, Leona arrived at her lab to find a sticky note on her screen. It read, "Okay, we were wrong. Want to lead Titan. Sign, Grant." On behalf of the entire team, she picked it up, smiled, didn't reply, just walked to the whiteboard, and wrote a new heading, Titan Nova Integration Plan. Because she wasn't joining their team, they were joining hers. After the Titan Nova demonstration, Leona became a sensation on campus and beyond. Tech blogs called her the Spider Architect, while Wired ran a headline, "Who is the girl behind the robot that left MIT speechless?" She was invited to present at the Global Future Tech Expo in San Francisco, an international stage where Fortune 500 execs and investors roamed like apex predators, always hungry for the next billion-dollar idea. But for Leona, it wasn't about money. It was about showing the world what someone outside the system could build when the system didn't crush them first. She stepped into the expo hall dressed in black boots, a plain blazer, and her signature hair wrap. Nova rolled quietly beside her like a shadow. Booths blinked with holograms. Drones flew overhead, but when Nova moved, the noise stopped. It crawled with precision, danced through chaos simulations, even mimicked emotional response. People gathered. Some asked questions. Some stared at her instead of the robot. And then one man approached with a confidence that smelled like money. Edward King, founder of Carter Robotics, a multi-billion-dollar automation empire. His suit was worth more than Leona's student debt. He smiled like a man who never heard no. "You built this?" "Yes," Leona said. "From scratch." He studied Nova. "Incredible. You're not just an innovator. You're an opportunity." She didn't respond. "I'll be blunt," he said. "We're looking to acquire licensing rights, design specs, AI core, the whole thing." Her stomach twisted. "I'm not selling." He smirked. "That's emotional talk. You don't want the burden of scaling this. Legal headaches, manufacturing, investors breathing down your neck. I built it to serve, not to sit in a vault," she replied. "Then let us do the hard part," he said. "You'll be compensated well. 7 figures minimum." She froze. 7 figures. Money that could clear her mom's hospital bills, buy a house, fund an entire youth robotics school in her old neighborhood. But then he said something else. "We'd prefer to move forward with the IP. Our internal team will take it from there. You can be listed as concept originator, optional." There it was. They wanted her brilliance, not her voice, her code, not her courage, her genius without her name attached to it. That night, Leona walked to the bay. The city lights flickered over the waves. Her phone buzzed with offers, congratulatory messages, and contracts. But all she could hear was the voice from months ago. "Shouldn't you be in the kitchen?" They still didn't see her as a leader, just a spark to ignite their machine, and then disappear. She opened her notes app, typed out a new plan. Not a sale, not a partnership. A launch. Carter Robotics Initiative. A startup for students who had ideas but no connections. A lab for creators who weren't white, weren't wealthy, weren't welcome. She didn't need their system. She would build her own. The next morning, she returned to the expo. Edward King waited by his booth, confident. "Well?" he asked. Leona smiled. "I'm not interested." He blinked. "You're walking away from millions." She nodded. "But don't worry." She added, "You'll see this tech again, just not under your name." She turned. Nova crawled beside her, and the crowd parted like she'd pulled gravity toward her. Later that week, TechCrunch published the story. Young inventor turns down. Tech. Giant chooses legacy over payout. And in her inbox, a single message from an unexpected name. NASA Robotics Division. Subject line: "Let's talk." The partnership with NASA Robotics Division was real, and not just ceremonial. They flew Leona out to Houston, gave her access to their innovation labs, and asked her to consult on adaptive eye systems for autonomous Martian rovers. A dream even she hadn't dared to imagine. At 20 years old, she stood in front of engineers twice her age, explaining how Nova's terrain logic could apply to extraterrestrial exploration. Her name began appearing in tech publications as not just the girl with the robot, but as an emerging leader in frontier robotics. And with that momentum, she finally did it. She opened her dream. The Carter Robotics Initiative, CRI, a youth-focused lab in East Atlanta, aimed at giving low-income, underrepresented teens access to the tools and mentorship that had once been out of reach for her. The first day, only 6 students showed up, all kids who had been labeled problematic, average, or not focused. One girl, 13, had been suspended twice for dismantling school computers. Another boy had failed math 3 semesters straight. Leona didn't care. She saw something the system didn't. Curiosity, frustration, potential that had never been watered. She handed them broken parts and challenges. Build something that moves with just 2 motors. Code a light sensor that turns off when you clap. They looked confused, then annoyed, then hooked. Within 2 weeks, the girl who'd been suspended built a prototype robotic arm that mimicked her wrist movements. The boy who failed math coded an obstacle-dodging rover that worked better than most freshman projects at MIT. Leona didn't just see future engineers. She saw herself, but not everyone celebrated. A month after the lab opened, an op-ed surfaced on a well-known academic newsletter. Is Leona Carter just a viral spark? Great tech needs structure. Can brilliance survive without the rigor of traditional gatekeepers? It didn't name her directly, but the message was clear. A whisper campaign began. She's not publishing peer-reviewed papers. Her methods are unorthodox. It's a feel-good story, but she's not scalable. Some STEM influencers even mocked her students. One said on a podcast, "You can't teach kids robotics from broken parts and duct tape. That's not real science." Her inbox turned colder. Investors paused. A few even pulled out. And one of her own students, Malik, the boy who built the rover, asked quietly, "Miss Carter, are we still legit?" She looked at him and felt the heat return to her chest. They weren't attacking her project. They were trying to erase what it represented, that brilliance could come from the margins, that a black woman could build an empire without their blessing. That knowledge didn't need a gate, it just needed a chance. So she came up with a plan. She registered all her students under Carter Robotics into the National High School Robotics Invitational, the largest youth robotics competition in the country, a tournament that had never had a winning team from a non-private school. She funded it herself, trained them every evening. They built bots from junk, but the code, sharp, adaptive, brutal. The day of the regional qualifiers, one judge looked at their team and said flatly, "We don't usually get students from community labs." Leona smiled sweetly. "Well, sir, it's the first time for a lot of things." Her kids won first place, not because of charity, because their bots outperformed polished competitors from schools with 10 times the budget. That night, she stood in the empty lab, watching her students tinker past midnight, argue over motor speeds, redesign claw grips, and she knew she wasn't just an inventor anymore. She was a cultivator of fire, and fire spreads. The National High School Robotics Invitational Finals were held in Washington, D.C. Bright lights, camera crews, corporate sponsors, teams in matching uniforms with high-end logos, custom tablets, and bots built in $100,000 labs. And then there was Team Carter Robotics. No uniforms, just hoodies, solder-stained fingers, and machines built from cast-offs and broken-down printers. But their bots worked, and better than most. Each round, they dominated. Obstacle navigation, arm extension dexterity, target recognition. They weren't just holding their own, they were setting new time records. But just before the final round, as their name climbed to the top of the leaderboard, a formal protest was filed. Team Carter Robotics should be disqualified. It read, "Their lab is not affiliated with an accredited institution. Their hardware does not meet traditional design standards. The origin of their software is undocumented. In short, they didn't belong." A board of judges pulled Leona aside. Miss Carter, one, began adjusting his lanyard. "The protest comes from multiple sources. There are concerns about your program's legitimacy." Leona folded her arms. "You've seen our performance. The kids built everything themselves." Another judge replied, "We aren't questioning effort, but rules are rules. The tournament is built on consistency and structure. Structure like zip codes and school budgets." She snapped. The room fell silent. They offered her a quiet compromise: withdraw voluntarily. Avoid public scandal. Try again next year with a more formal partner. It was exactly what Edward King had offered her months ago, a cleaner version of go back to the kitchen. But this time, the battle wasn't hers alone. Her students deserved better, and that's when Malik, the 15-year-old who once failed every math class, stepped forward. "Let me speak?" he said. Leona looked at him. "Are you sure?" He nodded. So she stepped aside. In front of the judging panel and a growing crowd of spectators, Malik walked up to the microphone. He adjusted it with shaking fingers, then said, "Before this lab, I never thought I'd finish high school. I thought I was dumb. They said I had discipline issues. But nobody ever asked why I acted out. Miss Carter didn't care what my grades were. She cared what I could build. She showed me I'm not broken. I just needed the right tools." He reached into his bag, pulled out the bot, held it up. "This. We didn't steal it. We didn't buy it. We built it. Together. From trash. From time. From belief." The crowd was frozen. Even the lead judge had tears in his eyes. After a long pause, The head of the board leaned into the mic. "Team Carter Robotics, you will not be disqualified." The room exploded with applause. The other teams, some clapped, some stayed silent, but the ones who mattered, the kids in the back who'd never seen someone like them win, they cheered the loudest. Leona stood at the edge of the arena, watching Malik be swarmed by reporters, and she smiled, because what just happened wasn't about winning. It was about breaking a door off its hinges and letting the light in for others. An hour later, when the scores came in, CRI didn't just win. They shattered the national record. For design, for speed, for raw innovation. The announcer held the mic. For the first time in the history of the Invitational, a community lab with no formal school affiliation has taken first place. He looked out over the stage. And it won't be the last. Months after Team Carter Robotics shook the nation, an email arrived in Leona's inbox. Subject line: MIT Commencement 2026. Keynote Invitation. She stared at the screen in silence. The same school where she had once been laughed at. The same halls where a student told her to go back to the kitchen. The same program that once questioned if she built her code herself now wanted her to speak. She called her mother that night, told her everything. There was a pause on the line. Then her mom simply said, "Just make sure they remember why they need you up there." Commencement day. Over 3,000 students, parents, professors, trustees, a stadium filled with names from every continent, but with very few like hers from the neighborhood she knew best. Leona stepped up to the podium wearing a deep green blazer, the same thrift shop boots she'd worn to her first MIT challenge, and a gold pin shaped like a gear, a gift from her students. Nova sat silently on the stage beside her, like a co-pilot. She took a breath, then began, "I was told once that I didn't belong here. Not because I failed a test, not because I broke the rules, but because of what I looked like, where I came from, and the room I dared to walk into." She let the silence settle. They didn't see potential in me, they saw disruption. But here's what they didn't understand. Disruption isn't the opposite of progress. It is progress. A few students clap, then more. She continued, "When I built my first robot, I had no lab, just a broken blender, a second-hand soldering iron, and a plastic tray under my bed. I didn't have access. I had curiosity, and the courage to stay in the room even when the room didn't want me." The applause grew louder. One of the faculty members wiped away a tear. To the ones who are still told to shrink themselves, the girl in the hijab, the trans kid afraid to raise their hand, the students working night shifts while others pull all-nighters for fun, you are not a footnote. You are the new architects of this field. She paused, looking out across the crowd. A row of students from Carter Robotics sat near the back, all in their hoodies grinning, recording every second. Malik gave her a thumbs up. They told me to go back to the kitchen. I went back. I cooked up a robot. I served them proof. And now I'm feeding a whole generation. The crowd erupted. Standing ovation. Tears. Cheers. Fists in the air. Nova beeped gently beside her, as if sensing the moment. After the ceremony, a professor approached her, the same one who had once questioned her during the ethics board review. He extended a hand. "You've changed the way we think about innovation." She shook it, smiled politely. But inside, she wasn't here for their approval anymore. She was here for impact. In the weeks that followed, Carter Robotics expanded. New labs opened in Baltimore, Detroit, Oakland. Applications poured in from young girls in rural India, boys from Brazil's favelas, refugee students in Europe all asking the same thing. Can we build, too? And the answer was always, yeah. Because Leona Carter wasn't just the girl who beat MIT. She became the woman who made the door she walked through wider, so millions more could follow. What would you have done if someone told you, go back to the kitchen? Would you have walked away? Or walked in and built something they couldn't ignore? And more importantly, how many Leonas are out there right now, still waiting for someone to believe in them? If this story inspired you, if you believe brilliance has no zip code, and courage has no dress code, then don't scroll past. Subscribe to RonStories so you never miss another story like this. Turn on the bell to be the first to hear about underdogs rewriting the rules, and drop a comment. What doors will you break open so the next generation doesn't have to knock